Hi, my name is Jen Bull, and this is my final project on how the text 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning provides a practical classroom framework for using high-impact formative assessment practices to grow learning. First off, what is formative assessment? It is when formal or informal processes that teachers and students use to gather evidence for the purpose of informing next steps in learning. It must lead to some action that improves learning. An instrument itself cannot be called formative, and information gained from a summative assessment could also be used for formative. Formal examples are assignments, tests, quizzes, performances, projects, and surveys, and some informal examples are questioning, dialogue, observing, and anecdotal note-taking. So when you're deciding between whether to use formal or informal, it is stated in the text that it is important to note that the determining factor on whether an assessment is formative or not is not the type of assessment we use, but rather what we and our students are able to do with the information it yields. The following 7 strategies offer direction on how to apply high-impact formative assessment actions across disciplines and content standards. Focus on ways educators and students can use assessment intentionally in support of learning, and it meets Sadler's 3 conditions: where am I going, where am I now, and how can I close the gap? Strategy number 1 is provide students with a clear and understandable vision of the learning target. Why are we doing this activity? What are we learning? And posting targets without using them actively will not lead to increased achievement. As stated in the text, targets on the wall are not targets in the head. Teachers can ensure students have a clear vision of the intended learning by converting learning targets into student-friendly language, identifying rubrics suited for formative use, and converting rubrics to student-friendly language. Strategy number 2 is use examples and models of strong and weak work. You should use models from anonymous student work or examples from Life Beyond School or even your own work. You can model the process and your expectations. And don't hide the development and revision part, or students will think they are doing it wrong when it gets messy. Strategy number 3, offer regular descriptive feedback during the learning. Information provided to students that results in an improvement in learning is the kind of feedback that we want to provide. Highlight what their next steps in learning might be and answers the questions, where am I now with respect to where do I need to be, and how can I close the gap? You should involve students as peer feedback givers. You can use 3-minute conferences to meet with students. You should direct attention to the intended learning, pointing out strengths and offering specific information to guide improvement. Address partial misunderstandings. Does not do the thinking for the student, and make sure you limit the corrective information so it is not overwhelming. Strategy number 4 is to teach students to self-assess and set goals for next steps. You're going to transfer the ownership of learning to the students in this step. The student's going to ask, what have I done well, and where do I need to continue working? A proven contributor to increase their learning, and it helps them create self-regulated learners. Some examples of quick self-assessment ideas are learning chains, stars and stairs, KWL charts, and using exit tickets. Strategy number 5 is use evidence of student learning needs to determine next steps in teaching. As stated in the text, there are 1,000 ways for learners to not get a lesson. We need to build a feedback loop into the teaching cycle, which is the zone of what happens next, and using the information collected from a formative assessment, determine other learning needs. Some types of errors are errors due to incomplete understanding, errors due to flaws in reasoning, and errors due to misconceptions. Regardless of what error, we have to remember that assessing to find out what our students know, how they are thinking, and how they are progressing, and then building time into the teaching cycle to act on that information creates in students the trust they need. Strategy number 6 is design focused instruction followed by practice with feedback. Scaffold learning by narrowing the focus of a lesson to address specific misconceptions or problems identified in Strategy 5. Deliver instruction in the area of need and allow students time to practice and then reassess, and provide those practice opportunities. Strategy number 6 also talks about instruction and practice with multiple choice items, graphic organizers, assessment tasks, and rubrics. And always remember to include opportunities for feedback throughout the practice. Strategy number 7, provide students opportunities to track, reflect on, and share their learning progress. Any activity that requires students to reflect on what they are learning and to share their progress reinforces the learning and helps them develop insights into themselves as learners. It deepens their understanding and develops a deeper commitment to making progress. All 7 of the strategies in this book reinforce a learning orientation where students have the goal to get better. All 7 strategies also require an incremental theory of intelligence, or what's more commonly known as a growth mindset. Thank you for viewing my presentation on how the text 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning provides a practical classroom framework for using high-impact formative assessment practices to grow learning. Here is my Works Cited page where I have cited the text 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning. I found this to be an excellent read and I enjoyed doing the microblogs, which helped me focus my reading on 15 important points each time.